And in 10, 9, 8, 7,
Excellent. Bonjour tout le monde, and hello to all our attendees. Wow, take a look at everyone joining us here today. Before we launch into our content today, we'd like to take a little bit of an insight opportunity in connecting with our audience that have attended. Therefore, we're going to start off with 2 warm-up questions to bring us all together on this last little bit of December in our chilly weather side. So please, as you join in, take a moment and pop into the chat. Number 1, where you're calling in from and the current weather there. And number 2, if the current weather system is something not as desirable, then pop in where you would rather be calling in from. And we'll just take a look at where we're getting from everybody here. Excellent. Okay, I see some minus 20 Celsius in central Canada. Okay, I hope that one's not in Celsius and not in Fahrenheit. Looking at Cuba would rather be in. Okay, some of the Colorado Rockies, excellent. So embracing some of the Christmas festivities as well. Perfect. Well, thank you all once again for joining our CAAM end of the year event, Reimagine, bringing together our members and our growing advanced air mobility ecosystem here in Canada. To all the returning faces, thank you for the continued interest in advanced air mobility and providing us the opportunity to work with you on bringing the future of aviation to Canada. As for initial introductions, my name is J.R. Hammond, and I'm grateful to have served as the Executive Director for CAAM, our federal, not-for-profit, Canadian Advanced Air Mobility Consortium over the 2021 calendar year. Alongside me, we have our Lead Operating Officer, Chris Howe, and our CAAM team members of Robin, Gio, Nishant, Darian, and David supporting us behind the scenes. Throughout 2021, our ecosystem of CAAM stakeholders and team members nationwide have been working to provide the future of zero-emission aviation across Canada. Today's focus is to reinforce the vision that we at CAAM have for the future of aviation and to propel our work with advanced air mobility into 2022. So thank you for joining us today. As we look at our agenda for today's focus, we really are focusing on the opportunity to embrace our first full year of digital operations at CAAM and chart our course for the work ahead still required. We'll begin the discussion by highlighting our work and operations through our Building Momentum in 2021 section. And then we'll transition our discussion to the insights learned over the year and the introduction of our pivot and new approach for 2022 onwards. We'll then invite Phil Cole, Vice President of Cert Center Canada, onto the stage for a fireside chat on the future of advanced air mobility nationwide. And lastly, we'll conclude the event with our calls to action for our ecosystem as we propel our work onwards in 2022. As always, we invite our attendees here today to submit their questions via the Q&A function in our Zoom webinar feature. And our CAAM team members will work diligently to respond, incorporate, and follow up with anything that cannot be answered during our session here today. We acknowledge that we are hosting this digital event on the unceded and traditional ancestral territories of the Shinnebawakie and Mississauga's Credit First Nation, among many others. Our ongoing work at CAAM spans across the hundreds of ancestral territories of the Indigenous peoples of Canada, and collectively, as settlers, we recognize our duty and responsibility to decolonization, reconciliation, and the equitable and inclusive use of our future air resources. Now, as we look at this Lift Off Together program, throughout 2021, our growth and importance in the future of aviation has only been strengthened thanks to our co-founding partnership with the National Research Council of Canada. The NRC, as Canada's largest federal research and development organization, and CAAM together are the base for a unified national and international voice for advanced air mobility. This partnership has been structured not only to expand our existing work, but move to our more tangible projects as we look to 2022 and beyond. Over the course of 2021, advanced air mobility has been defined as the future of aviation and how we move people, goods, and services with new aircraft and energy systems. At CAAM, our vision and purpose has only become more clear and defined throughout the year as we continue to be at the forefront and the thought leaders in creating our unified national strategy for zero emission aviation in Canada. The advanced air mobility narrative continues to build, and we are part of strengthening that vision nationwide. Now, as we've seen, the advanced air mobility ecosystem continues to expand in definition and scope over the 2021 year. Our focus at CAAM is to remain on the cutting edge of the industry through integrating not only the developments, but aligning our organization with what is progressing globally. While the advanced air mobility market supports both the piloted and remotely piloted operations, we want to bring the attention to the main focus and value driver for CAAM, which is ensuring the progress of the industry to our sustainability mandate of zero emission operations. With the growing and adapting advanced air mobility marketplace and with our partnerships globally, our vision at CAAM remains strong and at the forefront of the industry we are all here to create. Now, one of the themes that became ultra clear in our operations in 2021 is that CAAM has a place in this new industry in representing the optimistic and ambitious voice for advanced air mobility while grounding ourselves with the existing state of aviation and government regulation today. That ambition and optimism at CAAM was needed this year in order to coalesce a movement that lacked a voice of trying to bring the economic, environmental, and social development of our triple bottom line for advanced air mobility in Canada. Initially, that voice was just CAAMs. However, it grew to become a projection of the voices in the ecosystem we have created around us. With that said, I'd like to invite you to share in seeing some of the impacts that we as an ecosystem made together this year in 2021. Please enjoy. Excellent. And as a leader of CAAM, continuing to champion the voice and industry for advanced air mobility in Canada, we set out in 2021 trying to embody that ambition and optimism needed to attract stakeholders to the table. The speed, expansion, and process we desired were the standards set not only by myself, but the CAAM organization committing to move the AAM ecosystem forward. While optimism and ambition were needed, the challenges and setbacks we faced came from our inability to bridge the future with our existing aviation industry of today. Specifically, we as an organization made the commitment and set standards in January 2021 around our 4 strategic projects as the nearest term wins, allowing us to unlock the advanced air mobility industry in Canada. Our Toronto Phase 1 launch, Vancouver Phase 2 operate, auto and aero manufacturing, and advanced air mobility master plan projects were scoped, budgeted, and designed to be launched and completed within this calendar year. We were not successful on these goals. We knew that even if the industry wasn't ready to move at the pace we projected, we were still willing to face the repercussions of coming up short instead of the fear of not making any progress at all. Today, as the leader for CAAM, I'm opening up the doors and sharing the challenges and missed standards that affected our organization this year en route to incorporating the learnings for our future projects moving forward. Our first challenge came in our commitment to timelines. The impact that we had by delaying projects and continuing our work into 2022 eroded your belief as an ecosystem in our ability to not only execute on the projects, but our ability to fulfill a vision. We need to continue to work to have your trust and optimism and ambition for us while bridging the gap with the conventional aerospace industry and government regulation. Our second challenge came in our inability to fund our projects with matching provincial and federal grants. The impact that was that we overestimated our ability to not only find, apply, and critically close grants while raising industry capital. This paralyzed the speed that we wished to operate at. We need a new funding model that can scale quickly and encompass timeframes for projects that are designed for multi-year engagements and integrated funding streams. Our third challenge came in our failed commitment to have a CAAM-based technical expertise team to guide operational projects. We underestimated the external expertise required to move our Vancouver Phase 2 operate project and national AAM master plan forward. The impact on this internal technical expertise was failing to obtain one of our key goals for 2021. The goal was to bring tangibility of AAM to Canada through a Vancouver aircraft demonstration flight. We need to develop an operating environment to leverage and tap upon the technical expertise external to CAAM in a more effective and engaged way. And lastly, our significant challenge came in our inability to commit having our federal aviation authorities of NAV Canada and Transport Canada deeply engaged within our projects. We overestimated our ability to drive engagement and commitment with both entities and create alignment with their existing work on both the RTM and RPAS space. The impact of this lack of engagement was eliminating the possibility of a demonstration flight in Canada and further delaying the progress in developing the safety, operational, and integrated policy framework for AAM operations. In leaning into this vulnerability, this is a small glimpse into where we as an organization know that we did not succeed in living up to the challenges and standards that we set at the beginning of this year. Now, as CAAM rises up again for 2022, we know these challenges will still exist. However, we don't need to be afraid of not having an ecosystem to rise up with us. Together, we can take these learnings and move onwards. Not only do we have the experts in attendance here today, but we have a year's worth of tangible data and insight to help refine our value and proposition to lead this industry for 2022. Today is a brief introduction to the propulsion we will need as an organization and as an industry for the next set of challenges ahead. It is going to begin with number one, CAAMs Pivot to a project-based structure that removes CAAM as the center of expertise and focuses on working with industry and academic leaders to expedite their AAM projects forward. This structure takes all the education and awareness that CAAM has been championing for AAM in 2021 and moves it towards motivating industry and academia to launch scalable, impactful AAM projects. We'll take these industry and academia-driven projects and combine them with multi-year grant applications that better align with both existing aerospace and government timeframes and initiatives. Our own financial stability at CAAM will come from leveraging our national not-for-profit status, our commitment to the triple bottom line initiative of environmental, economic, and social developments, and for receiving compensation for grant money raised on matching funds for AAM projects. Secondly, on our technical expertise challenge, we are structuring a deeper 2022 through 2030 integrated approach for AAM with the National Research Council of Canada through our mutual participation in the AAM Master Plan. Further, we're actively expanding our strategic national board for CAAM to tap experts globally to help guide myself and the organization into the next phase of CAAM's expansion and success nationwide. Lastly, on our engagement with the AAM ecosystem and our federal agencies of NAV Canada and Transport Canada, CAAM will continue to invest in the extensive efforts into refining our education and awareness platforms for opportunities, gaps, and the environmental and social challenges facing the industry. This is going to be combined with transitioning our engagement from just that of an education and awareness side to a coordinated action and operations en route to future commercial operations of AAM. A near-term example of this is CAAM's participation in the co-chair of the Transport Canada's Canada Committee for the AAM Task Group. We knew that we were going to be ambitious in believing that we could tackle all 4 of these projects in 1 year, have enough technical expertise to steer them, enough funding to back them, and enough engagement from NAV and Transport Canada to make them valuable for everyone involved. And while our ambitions won't change for 2022, the expectations we set with you and with ourselves need to ground us in the current state of the industry today. What we committed to isn't what we delivered on, but we are committed to broadcasting the learnings that will help all of us achieve the vision of a zero-emission future for advanced air mobility and incorporate those learnings moving forward. And now, to bridge some of the conversation of taking the learnings and painting that pathway forward, I would like to invite Phil Cole, the Vice President of CERT Center Canada, to join us on the stage for a fireside chat. Phil Cole and his team at CERT Center Canada have been instrumental in bringing insight, projects, and development for the advanced air mobility system, not only nationwide, but globally as well. And we have the privilege of working alongside Phil and his team at CERT Center Canada and continue to bridging that gap of what our future aviation ecosystem looks like in this country. So Phil, thank you so much for taking the time on joining us here today. Welcome to the spotlight.
It's absolutely my pleasure, JR. It's good to see you, and hello to everybody that's online.
Excellent.
I'm stunned at how open and transparent you've been already today in admitting some of the things that might not have gone quite according to plans. What else is keeping you awake at night, JR? I'm really interested to see what's really on your mind.
Well, Phil, this is the critical part that we know as an organization is the only way that we can bridge that gap of having the ambitious and optimistic voice is to continue to link ourselves with that existing state of reality of government and the aviation industry timeframes, and being transparent and vulnerable of where we missed, where we wanted to go, and how we came up short. Sharing that and bridging those learnings is the only way that we see forward as an organization in maintaining that trust. What still keeps me up at night is as we lean deeper into this triple bottom line of that environmental, economic, and social pieces, we have people commenting and critiquing all of the work that we've put out publicly on saying more is needed, more environmental research, more environmental frameworks, more social engagement. We do not have all of the answers, Phil. And this is what the next big challenge for us is going to be that keeps me up at night, is how do we continue to bring in the insight and expertise from all of these critiquers around the world that are looking at our work and treat it as an opportunity for improving those bars and standards, and not as something to hide away from and retract, but really find that opportunity to collaborate and engage and raise that bar up overall across the world.
That makes all the sense in the world to me, JR. It really does. And I think there's actually behind everything, despite what's happened in 2020 and 2021, everybody, not just the aerospace industry or the advanced air mobility, urban air mobility space, everybody has suffered as a result of what's been going on with the pandemic. And we've had challenges that we've all had to deal with. But I think for our sector in particular, we're going to look back on this 5 years from now, and we're actually going to say that the pandemic was actually a blessing in many respects for our industry, because it's caused the aerospace industry, the traditional aerospace industry in Canada, as well as in other parts of the world, to really focus on what it needs to do to transform. And of course, advanced air mobility and urban air mobility are keys to the transformation of the aerospace sector. So we've seen quite a dramatic ramp up in how engaged the traditional aerospace companies have been over the last 12, 24 months. And this can only help everybody. Their expertise is something that really is required to make all of this a reality. So having them fully engaged and on board is going to help everybody.
And you talk about the critical part of what COVID in its silver lining has done for this industry. It has never been seen for an opportunity to pivot an industry of this size, of this dimension, which COVID has just bluntly put at the forefront, not only allowing sustainability to come in there as a critical narrative, but how does this brand new insight of advanced air mobility integrate within those existing systems? We think, and we make the joke that when they write the book of advanced air mobility coming to Canada, the silver lining of COVID, of having that decade leap forward in just the education and awareness of what could be feasible, is going to be chapter number 1 in that book across the country.
I think you're absolutely right. And some of the work that I and many of the other people on this call, I'm sure, that are engaged with the Aerospace Industries Association of Canada will recognize. AIAC actually contracted with Roland Berger, who are an independent consulting company, to do a study on what would be important to Canada in the aerospace industry in Canada coming out of the pandemic. And they came up with 8 findings. They just published this a couple of months ago. They came out with 8 findings, and number 5 of the 8 findings was that there needs to be an aggressive push towards 2 things. One is decarbonization, and the second one is autonomy. And if that isn't good news for everybody on this call, I don't know what is. I mean, really, it plays exactly into this space, 100%.
That's it. And I think the other learning that I can't stress enough coming out of this past year is how the existing partnerships with groups like AIAC, with groups like Unmanned Systems Canada or Aerial Evolution of Canada, now named, this is a base that we can continue to partner and lean into, not having to recreate everything, but leveraging that work en route to the future that we want in the aviation system. So those findings, Phil, align exactly with what the strategic partnerships we're looking at for 2022 moving forward, and how we're aligning ourselves as an organization to be that cooperative side, knowing that this industry is only going to continue to expand in size and importance, and there is room for all of us to complete the work ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, I've asked you a couple of questions. Why don't you shoot? I'm sure you have a question for me. I'm more than happy to try and answer it.
So what we're taking a look at, Phil, is building upon the project-based structure for next year. What are you seeing in the trends from your work, really leaning in with a lot of the AAM OEM manufacturers, as well as some of the global players, on how they see Canada playing a role in the future of advanced air mobility?
Oh, great question. Well, the good news for everybody in Canada, at least, maybe not around the world, but the good news for Canada for sure, is that there are a plethora AAM and UAM manufacturers who are looking at Canada as a place that they want to do more work. We're seeing it, my company is based in Quebec, and we're seeing company after company looking at Quebec quite seriously, looking at the existing aerospace companies that are kind of focused in that local area, and saying that, this is a good place perhaps for us to finalize our designs, work on our final vehicle designs, tap the expertise locally to build the project out so that we can actually, put the vehicles together and get them flight tested and certified and all the other bits that are contingent on that. So we're seeing, I would say, almost every month, we're seeing new OEMs come and look at Canada very, very seriously. And it's obviously not happening just in Quebec; it's happening across Canada, and this is part of the reason that the traditional aerospace companies are very, very focused on this space right now, because it's an opportunity-rich environment. To be perfectly honest, who do you partner with? What programs look great? We're almost. We almost have too many projects to look at in terms of people with design concepts for vehicles. And they're at different stages. Some are still very early on, some are very, quite mature already. And it becomes an exercise of selecting which ones, individual companies believe have a path to success. Otherwise, we end up spreading ourselves too thin. So that side of things is extremely positive right now. The thing that's not quite so positive, perhaps, is the use cases, the development of use cases for these vehicles, and particularly one of the areas that you mentioned before that we're struggling with as a community is getting Transport Canada on board fully, getting them properly engaged, Nav Canada, worrying about how are the regulations going to evolve, when are they going to evolve. These things are all going to be use case driven. And so when you look at a project, as we move into this project-based structure that CAAM is looking at for 2022 and beyond, the start of the project is really defining what the use case for the vehicle and the service is going to be. And I think we've got a little bit more work to do there. In tapping into, and be honest, this is where one of the things that I see CAAM as being particularly useful to those of us in the community out there, is kind of keeping a look on what are the new use cases that are coming out there, who are the potential customers for these vehicles and these services. We're worried about how to build them, how to certify them, how to get them in service, and let's face it, how to make money at the end of the day from delivering these things. But we absolutely need people to be focused on where are they going to be used, how are they going to be used, what regulations are going to be required in order to enable those use cases. And that will help us to direct, in a way, Transport Canada and Nav Canada to focus on the bits of regulatory development that need to happen in what order, so that we can actually start making stepwise progress. It's not all going to happen in one big jump.
No, and that's the critical point too. And just to bring awareness to that piece you were mentioning, Phil, yes, we need the use case development. Yes, we need those pilot project and demonstration flights. But critically, how do we link that to a recurring revenue business model? That's the gap that still exists that we don't have the answer for right now, and is going to be a very important learning coming down the time frame, so that it feeds, exactly as you were mentioning, the regulatory process and your work coming from the OEMs. What kind of aircraft do need to be designed to fulfill those successful business models?
And it's interesting because I think the Canadian government, in many respects, has a part to play in this, in terms of looking at the strategy. What does the federal government, and potentially what do the provincial governments as well view as the strategy that they think is important for this industry in Canada? So it's one of the things that AIAC is doing continuously. It's also, the regional organizations like Air Montreal in the Montreal area, they're out tapping government, trying to find out what is in the government's minds about what they think are priorities, what do they want focused on. And clearly, if we've got the backing of the governments, then that's some leverage that can be applied also from the regulatory perspective to get focus on things that really matter to us.
Very much so. Very much so. And just to bring that awareness to not only the regional, the Aero Montreals, the Ontario Aerospace Council, British Columbia Aviation Council, those have been champions that we continue to lead in on those partnerships for finding where can we take all of that existing work and bring that next phase to the existing aerospace and government regulatory policies to ensure that those existing and leveraged members can benefit from what's coming down the pipeline.
100%, 100%. And I'm sure you know also, the federal government made an announcement back in the summer. Actually, it was in April, it's the budget, that there was a large lump of money that was going to be targeted at the aerospace industry. I think $1.75 billion, if I'm not much mistaken. And it looks like the SIF 5, the Strategic Innovation Fund Stream 5, is going to be the kind of mechanism for that to be awarded to certain projects. So the government, just like CAAM, the government is taking a project-based approach to all of this too. And the projects must be collaborative, so they must involve multiple industry members, academia, research institutions. Then what are the projects that we want to work on as a community across the country? Not little pockets of stuff going on, but across the country, what are those projects that we want to work on? I think clarity in that area is particularly key. And there are some proposals being worked on by several groups around right now that are trying to put these projects together. And I would confidently predict that urban air mobility and advanced air mobility are going to be significant cornerstones of some of those proposals moving forward.
That's it. And the unifying aspect nationwide has only strengthened in all of our vision and mission aspect too, Phil, knowing that reducing those silos between work going on in British Columbia and Vancouver, Prairie provinces, Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic, and then the North.
Yep.
How do we find those opportunities to bring all of that insight together so that the projects have that national impact and experienced by the regional members at the same time?
Yep, I couldn't agree more, and I think it's also trans-sectorial, right? I mean, this is part of the problem. We operate to a certain extent within industry silos, where we're part of a particular sector. But in order for this to actually get to fruition, there needs to be a bridging of automotive with aerospace, with the energy sector, with people producing new fuels, hydrogen, batteries. There's a whole bunch of cross-industry sector confluence that needs to take place. And we're not necessarily, the aerospace guys here and girls are not necessarily best placed to lead those activities. You almost need a third party to stoke the pot and get those conversations going so that people don't feel threatened.
Of course, and bringing in the automotive side is the critical piece there too. Excellent. Phil, we still got you there?
Yes, you have. Yes, right. I was hearing a bit of breaking up, but I'm still here.
Excellent. And so transitioning, we know the automotive is going to be a critical narrative as well. Let's bring it to some of the tangible operation side. We look at the progression that Harbour has made on transitioning their existing Beaver fleet to the electric side by that 2026 timeframe, getting their STC working in conjunction with Transport Canada. We look at the recent investment into Helijet by Blade Urban Air Mobility, bringing in $12 million to market their scheduled passenger helicopter service en route to that Electric Vertical Aircraft Association. What kind of insight are you seeing with these two movements out west, and how can we bring that to the rest of Canada?
Okay, so again, good question. So the blade Helijet thing is really, really interesting, and it's also really, really new, right? I mean, this is recent news. Seeing a company like Blade, who's clearly in the advanced air mobility, urban air mobility space, moving forward, form a good alliance with a traditional operator of, I guess, helicopters, but let's call them traditional aircraft. That's a really, really, really positive step. And we're seeing those kind of steps happen elsewhere too. There's a number of electrical aircraft programs going on around the country right now. I can think of at least 4 or 5 of them that I'm aware of, and I'm sure there are more. And those are all kind of driven from a battery powered perspective. And that's part of a solution even for the traditional aerospace sector, but it's by no means the whole one. We're seeing work going on in the sustainable aviation fuel sector, and great work that are being done by organizations like the SAF Plus Consortium to move that forward. We saw I'm sure everyone saw the press release from Joe Biden in the US about the amount of money that the US is going to be putting into the sustainable aviation fuels market. We're starting to see those kind of things also happening in Canada. So that's good too, because I can see certainly a place for sustainable aviation fuels in the urban air mobility and advanced air mobility sector as well, especially if we're talking longer distances, larger payloads, that kind of thing. And in many ways, it's maybe a lower risk path to a certified product at the end of the day if we're using something that's much more traditional propulsion, that's already got a path to certification that's tried and tested. It might be quicker to get those to market from a certification perspective than it is to try and do something completely different, like the battery powered stuff. So those are definitely positive things that we're seeing. And of course, we're seeing every day something new in this space. CAE, I mean, it's a great example, right? CAE is, I don't know how many press releases CAE have put out this year about training partnerships with Jaunt and with Beta and with a whole bunch of other companies too. This is all fantastic news. I mean, Canada is the 800-pound gorilla internationally in the training sector. It really is. And to get backing of companies like CAE to some of these programs, it's credibility. Having their partnership on a program is great from an investor perspective. If those companies are actually looking to generate more revenue, or to generate more investment so that they can continue, it's great. So I'm really, really, really excited about all of these things that are going on around the country. And when you see companies like Harbour Air pioneering this kind of stuff, it's great.
That's it. And you look at the golden star, what CAA is doing on putting AAM at the forefront globally and having that Canada brand alongside of it. That's just the motivation for not only further engagement, but also, exactly as you said, Phil, taking that SAF work, taking our hybrid propulsion work and stringing it together, showcasing that this is a pathway to zero emission. We know we have to meet the market where it's at if we're going to have any engagement, any progress forward, knowing that that's part of the path on road to where we want to get to in the future, and finding additional opportunities via the Harbour Airs, the Helijets, our operators here in the eastern part of Canada and Atlantic Canada. These are the opportunities that we're continuing to expand and open the doors for, saying, how can we leverage CAAM and our insight to get to that route quicker?
Absolutely. And the solutions that we're going to see, 20 years from now, cast your mind forward 20 years, we're going to see a mix of platforms, a mix of propulsion systems, a mix of different service offerings. It's not that there is a right choice here. There are several right choices. And so you can't point your finger at someone and say, you've made a mistake there. That's the wrong thing to do. It might be absolutely the right thing to do. There really is no one roadmap that gets us to the future here. There's lots of different opportunities for lots of different players.
And that transition's perfect because we know it's going to be an intermodal. There's going to be many different aspects for our different industry pillars to play in between academia, government, the public themselves, and of course, industry. What do you see as a big call to action that you would like from industry going from 2022?
Yeah. Oh, ouch. All right. So for me, the intermodality is really, it's a bit like searching for the single human ancestor. It is the missing link. The working out as we're developing vehicles and operational models and plans to get things approved, as we're doing that, we're expecting the infrastructure side of things to kind of be keeping pace with what we're doing, so that when we're ready to deploy something, the infrastructure's there. But the truth is, it's not keeping pace. And the bit that's, to me, the bit that's kind of missing is the long-term city planning, urban planning aspects of it. You know, what does Toronto City Council think Toronto's transportation infrastructure is going to look like? I mean, let's be honest, we need them to be looking 50 years out. What's it looking 50 years out, 30 years out, 10 years out, so that we can start to think about how do we fit into that intermodal model? Because we're not going to be the right choice for all transportation needs. We're just not. So we need to kind of integrate those other transportation systems. But not just from a transportation system perspective, infrastructure is also about things like, how do we maintain vehicles? Where are the companies that can maintain vehicles? They're going to have to be close to where we plan to operate them. Where's there going to be the right air traffic management system in place? Where's the sustainable aviation fuel coming from? How is it getting distributed to the place where the vehicles are going to be? So there's a huge number of questions, or a huge number of problems that we have to deal with. And my wish for the industry is to kind of get a little less stovepiped, where we're all worried about our particular thing, and start to have a much bigger, broader conversation about putting all of this lot together.
And what beautiful language on that. Advanced air mobility is not going to be the ubiquitous paintbrush to solve out all transportation solutions. It has to be a part of that intermodal. There are specific, tangible use cases where this technology makes sense, and that's not going to solve out everything. And those are the questions that need to be asked early in time, so we are participating and being a part of those 20, 30, 40-year plans. So there is a role for advanced air mobility to solve out those technology challenges, to solve out those use cases in cities and regional areas.
Absolutely.
So that is a direct ask to industry for 2022. And Phil, if anything, those are the questions that we're trying to continue to pull out. We need champions to ask those questions and be difficult with them today, so that we begin that dialogue, begin the long-term process of working through and developing the correct industry, not the quickest one and not necessarily the biggest one, but the one that is going to move us forward as a society.
Yep. I can see we're kind of getting towards the end of this session right now. So I'm going to ask you another question, if that's okay.
Please, to conclude with.
I want to know what next steps you see for everybody. What's your ask for the folks on the call?
And Phil, this is where, just to bring it all together on what we've portrayed today, is we are looking to reinstall that vision of ensuring that CAAM remains that ambitious, optimistic voice, as well as finding those additional pieces to ground ourselves with the conventional aviation and government policy side. We don't have the perfect solution for all of those challenges yet, but we're leaning in and asking the industry, academia, government, and the public to embrace this new project-based structure and promote where innovation is coming from all those different sectors in engaging with CAAM for our 2022 plans going forward. So that is our overall ask. Come to us with these different opportunities, come to us with these projects, and this is going to give us an opportunity to scale nationwide at a quicker rate and have those expertise expanded even further.
Sounds good. It really sounds good.
Excellent. Well, Phil, as always, such a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon in not only sharing the insight, but also the motivation that we have for the challenges ahead, the tough questions, but critically, the commitment from experts like yourself.
It's absolutely my pleasure, JR, and everybody at CAAM. Really, really appreciate the work that you're doing on behalf of all of us. It's great to have that focus.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again, Phil.
It's a
And
pleasure.
we wish you all the best until conversations pick up again in January next year.
That's great. Thanks, JR.
Excellent. And as we move to the last part of our conversation today, we want to bring some of these next steps for you, our ecosystem, in moving forward. So today's concluding slides are just that encouragement that yes, we have some challenges. Yes, we haven't fulfilled on all of our opportunities, but these are the learnings that we're putting in for the next steps for you, our ecosystem. So in addition to wanting everyone and encouraging rest, rejuvenation over the holiday break, we want to continue this momentum for the work ahead that we have planned for 2022. For our industry partners, we are gearing up to maximize the impact of your AAM projects in 2022. In alignment with our AAM master plan, we've identified the key project pillars of technology, infrastructure, and regulation that will be needed moving forward. Engage with us to see how we can expedite this work. For our academia partners, make sure your research capacity and projects are known and shared. Engage with us at CAAM to maximize the impact of not only our industry projects, but begin that training of our future workforce here to contribute not only to the industry, but our marketplace as well. For our government stakeholders, extend your capacity, as we spoke about, for advanced air mobility, and continue to find a way to integrate the aerial future into your urban, regional, and transportation planning of today. Engage with us to start that education and awareness process for what is actually possible. And lastly, for our public attending here today, you are the future workforce, the future marketplace, and the future champions of this industry. Sign up and subscribe to our open house events and our projects to start crafting your future work and job opportunities in this industry. And to conclude with, thank you for once again leaning in and lifting off with us this year and rising up to the challenge as we craft the unified national vision for zero emission advanced air mobility together. From our entire team at CAAM of Robin, David, Nishant, Chris, Gio, Darian, and myself, we thank you for being part of the solution. We thank you for being here today, and we thank you for creating a better future in aviation together. For the last time this year in 2021, have a safe, rejuvenating, and connective holiday break, and we'll see you in 2022 for the continuation of our advanced air mobility adventures. From all of us at the CAAM team, take care.